right, let's try this for the third take. It's not easy for me to say, and not easy for me to get it out, but I watched my grandmother get beat by my stepmom, and for years, to force her to sign stuff that she didn't want to sign, do stuff that she didn't want to do. And I always knew, and I started noticing that my gram started having memory problems, and she was always falling. She always used to tell me not to tell my dad about my stepmom beating on her. You know, but how do you catch a crook like this? You know, like she's a straight criminal. You know, and people think she's innocent, but like, you know, so the first day I met her, right? Me, my mom, my dad were perfectly living our lives, and she came over and made a sex video over top of my Christmas and left it for my mom to find. Okay? And I've been getting beat and neglected and treated like shit from her for years. So did my grandmother. And like I said, I'm pretty sure my gram's not here anymore. Here's the problem. I have nobody to have my back. It's just me. My dad don't have my back because he's convinced that I'm out doing whatever. I don't know. I really don't. You know, I'm doing the best out of everybody though. You know, and any time that I do get ahead, you know, I got to deal with her bullshit. You know? But yeah, I'm on my way to work, and you know, here's what's really messed up. That years went by where she worked and banked all her money and made my dad slave labor, hard work, long hard hours, much as possible, and she never spent a dime of her money. You know, like the whole thing is criminal, corrupt, it ain't right, and I really don't know what to do. You know, I don't have nobody to turn to. I've went to the police over the years. I don't know if like they don't believe me or something. You know, or they're right along with the scheming and scam. And you got to understand, my grandfather, we were at war. My grandfather was a command sergeant major in U.S. military. All right, and my grandmother, full-blooded Italian, had a lot of family members. And this lady that I'm talking about, my stepmom, because she grew up how she grew up with nothing, why would anything get handed to me? So nothing's ever been handed to me. You know, I've literally had to do everything on my own all my life. You know, and she would sit there and snap out on my dad, and she's really violent. You know, and I really don't know what to do. I'm not scared. You know, but you know, there's two sides to every story, and if majority takes the wrong side, and then they're not going to want to admit that they're wrong, or that they was wrong all these years. You know, this stuff's gone on for a long time. You know, like, and the simple fact is, everybody in my family is dead, while all her family's living high lives, and they've never worked a day in their lives. Yeah, day in their lives. So, you know, what do? You sit back and you can't do nothing because you're a child, you know, and everybody thinks I'm the crook when I'm trying to, you know, she makes it out that I'm just trying to get stuff, whatever, that was my family members, my grandmother, my grandparents, or my uncles, or whoever's, to sell for whatever. Well, I'm not the type of person to get something of my family's and sell it. I hold on to it. Sentimental value means more than anything to me. You know, me and my grandfather had a great big coin collection, and she's robbed everything out of it. You know, and like, people don't realize, you know, she's a functioning drug addict. You know, she works at Walmart, and she's held down a job for years and still had an addiction. You know, me, I take a drug test, blood test, urine test any day. I'll show you there ain't nothing in my system. Would she? You know, no. She would not. And the reason why I know crack smells like toothpaste is because she's a crackhead. And that's what she used to say, oh, it's just the toothpaste. So, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all that didn't know what crack smells like. I knew what crack smelled like at 6 years old because of her. You know, and I can't, today I'm replaying all the times that she was over there with my gram. She was supposed to be at work. My stepmom was supposed to be at work, and I was with my gram, and she'd go over there and beat on my gram and threaten her and this and that to sign stuff. I don't know exactly what it was. My gram would always make me go down in the basement until she was done. And then she'd tell me not to say nothing to my dad. So I never did. So God will help us. God will help us. Your dad will find out eventually. Let him find out on his own. She's evil. Well, God never came.